Yo, 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 what up? It's your boy Rob, coming back at you once again with another video. Before we get started, please hit that bell twice so that you get notified for the next time we do a video, and smash the like button up on these videos because YouTube suppresses us in the algorithm because they don't quite want you knowing what we talk about. We're going to talk about it anyway, right? And before you do anything else, go to the About page and hit us up on all of our other social media so that you can stay in touch if and when we lose our accounts, all right? Because you got to make those kind of provisions nowadays because we're moving into some very strange times. So it looks like history is repeating itself for many reasons. Many reasons. We got rioting in the streets. We've got a sharp divide in the country. And we also have what seems to be pandering for some odd reason and big pharmaceutical tricks. So let's talk about Tariq Nasheed, because a lot of people have issues with Tariq Nasheed. And the biggest issue is probably because he speaks his mind. Whether you agree with him or not, you know, that could come from where you're from. But when people speak facts, it really shouldn't matter if you like the person or not. So I'm going to go down a couple of his most recent tweets because in my opinion, he's been on point as far as politically and his assessment of what's going on with COVID-19. Now, before I do this, I would like everybody to go to Blacklight Revelations 1 as well as Blacklight Revelations 2. Smash up the like button, smash up the bell icon for notification, share this video to Facebook and Twitter, and make sure that you watch the entire COVID-19 / coronavirus playlist on each channel respectively, all right? And then take a look at Tariq's Twitter. So let's do that right now, all right? So there's Tariq right there, okay? So let's take a look at some of his tweets. This is the live stream that he did on YouTube the other day, and he has a picture of a woman getting a COVID-19 vaccination, and it looks very similar to this picture from way back in the pre-civil rights era, where all of the medical personnel are standing around another black woman about to get experimented on. Now, the question that he asks is, do you trust the COVID vaccine? And we'll get to that later, right? So here's another one where, again, he's accurate. Before you do anything else, make sure you bookmark on Blacklight Revelations 1 and Blacklight Revelations 2 the Joe Biden playlists, and please watch every single one of them. And also pay attention to the comments. You got a lot of angry people where, you know, clear-cut examples of his negligence and racism are shown, and mainly black people are just extremely upset and illogical about the whole situation, despite being warned about this numerous times. Now, this tweet says, I'm going to keep showing contempt for the 85% of black voters who elected me, while giving preferential treatment and tangibles to Hispanics who voted in significant numbers for my opponent, Trump, which is absolutely true. He literally said that to the legacy civil rights leaders on the leaked phone call. Now here it says, as I said throughout the campaign, I will be a president for all Americans, which nobody asked Joe Biden to not be a president for all Americans. We just asked him to be fair and respect people's wishes. I will work just as hard for those of you who didn't vote for me as I will for those who did. And I think that line right there is one of the reasons why Trump supporters loved Trump so much, because Trump did everything that he possibly could for his voter base. Whether you agree with it or not, Trump did what he could for his voters. Joe Biden is literally saying he's going to give equal treatment even people who didn't support him, which is kind of odd, and it could kind of cause backlash with the people that supposedly did support him. But honestly, the majority of those people that Tariq Nasheed said supported him, I don't even think that they'll notice, because they're already in their own echo chamber and they already think that the world is getting better simply because Trump isn't in office, which is very sad. It shows how little they know about politics. Then we got this weird shit Now, this is interesting. I'd like to know where the Hill got this information from. It says there's a new poll saying that increasing numbers of Americans, including black people, would take COVID-19 vaccine. Now, I pulled this article up, all right, and here it is. It says a poll finds increasing numbers of Americans, including black people, would take the COVID vaccine. All right, now this is interesting. Americans are increasingly willing to take a COVID-19 vaccine, especially black and Hispanic Americans. Really, especially black and Hispanic Americans. That's interesting. And again, why do they always couple black and Hispanic Americans together? Clearly, we don't get the same treatment. Clearly, we're not valued the same in society. It would be nice if they didn't couple us together as if we were the same. According to a new poll released Tuesday, the Kaiser Family Foundation poll found that 71% of Americans are willing to take a free and safe COVID-19 vaccine, an increase of 8% from 3 months ago. So an increase of 8%, that's not a very significant increase, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's an increase, but it's not very safe. I'm sorry, it's not very significant. So here it says the increases are most dramatic among black adults. 62% of these polled in December said that they would be willing to take a free and safe vaccine compared to 50% 3 months ago. Okay. Now, that's very interesting. Officials had worried about convincing people to get vaccinated, especially people from communities of color who had been exploited by the public health system in the past. Now, people of color did not get publicly exploited by the health system. That is a lie. That is United States of America pseudoscience. That is pseudoscience. You know how anytime we try to say something and everybody says that it's pseudoscience? That is pseudoscience. No one from communities of color were exploited by public health system in the past. Say it with me and say it slowly. Black people in Tuskegee, Alabama were exploited by the public health system. Say it. Black people, not people of color. Say people of the color black. Okay. Now, also in North Carolina, the eugenics department sterilized, they unknowingly sterilized black women, not people of color. Okay. It didn't happen to people of color. You know, it wasn't a bag of Skittles that got sterilized. It was black licorice. Okay, it was a bag of black licorice. Okay, so the United States needs to stop doing that. They need to stop piggybacking off of the things that happen to us and pushing others up forward in society while not doing anything to rectify any of the things that were done to us. Because, I mean, even in this article here, it talks about how there was no payment. There was no payment to some of the victims. You see this? In 2013, North Carolina passed a law that was supposed to compensate victims. However, not all of the victims were paid. Somehow, when it comes to black people, okay, not people of color, black people, you know, we get experimented on and not everybody gets paid. That's not a people of color thing, okay? It's not. That I'm not racist for saying that. You know, I'm just doing the same thing that, you know, people like to do when we say things. I'm just countering pseudoscience. The Hill saying that especially people of color were exploited by the public health system in the past. That's pseudoscience, okay? That's pseudoscience. Now, here it says, and who still faced worse health outcomes compared to white people, partly due to unequal access to care and racism. Well, and also partly due to experimentation. Okay, this is pseudoscience also. See, because we're lying by omission right here. You know, not having access to healthcare had nothing to do with telling people you were giving them free healthcare and then allowing them to go untreated for months at a time with syphilis infections. That doesn't have anything to do with access to healthcare. That has to do with access to the truth. Okay? Do you understand? This is pseudoscience. This is what the United States does. And then when we say something was done to us, And they say that we have low IQ, we're lying, we don't know history, we're tearing statues down, and that we're saying pseudoscience. When all of these countries, are all of these media outlets here, The Hill, the History Channel, Channel 11, ABC, none of these are black owned or black authored or black financed. So even if all of these places are consistently across the board lying, the only original, the only black owner here in this entire equation is Tariq Nasheed, and he owns his Twitter account, okay, and he owns his YouTube channel, okay, and I'm reading his tweets, the tweets that are based on correlations from actual history with articles that are coming from mainstream media. Okay. So, when people get upset, because of these things, I don't understand why people would get upset. When we talk about these kind of things, these are establishment issues. These are government issues. These kind of conversations and these kind of topics are being directed at the same people that QAnon thinks is trying to run a coup on President Trump. I don't understand why they should be so believable, and when we show evidence of this kind of stuff, we're not believable either. I don't understand that. Okay? So this is the inherent bias that goes on in the United States because of people's emotional attachments to inaccurate ideas. And in order for society to ever progress, integrated, and be optimal and function in its greatest form, people need to just understand this kind of stuff and recognize it, and recognize that it happened, recognize that we were never paid back. Again, people always like to talk about slavery and who was and who wasn't a slave. Okay, well, what about this woman? This woman died in 2002. Okay, and she didn't get any compensation. It's like a lot of these victims of this genocide and sterilization that they did in North Carolina. Okay. So we have to stop with the false narratives and everybody getting butthurt because they don't like stains on the sheets. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. No country is perfect. How do you think people in Germany feel? You know what I'm saying? When people bring up World War II, I'm sure they're not proud of that, but it is what it is. Germany's still a good country. They still, have great achievements. They still have a very nice country. You know what I'm saying? They still have great people that come from there. So, I mean, we're one of the youngest countries in the world. So to expect perfection from us, it doesn't even make sense. When you're growing up, you're not at your best form when you're a child or when you're an adolescent. You usually don't start sharpening and getting, fine-tuned and working at your optimal until you're 30 or 40. And, in years in country existence, if you put that on a scale, we're probably like a teenager age as far as a country. So people need to get a grip and get over it. All right. So here it says public health officials have worked in recent months to assuage those concerned ahead of the expected authorization of a COVID-19 vaccine. All right. So now this says the poll, which was conducted from November 30th to December 8th, indicates some of those efforts have been successful, not just among people of color, but across all segments of society. But the poll found a partisan gap in willingness to take a vaccine. 86% of Democrats said in December that they would take the vaccine compared to 77% 3 months ago. Only 56% of Republicans said the same in December, compared to 47% in September. While the poll found increases in the percentages of Americans willing to take the vaccine hesitancy still remains. All right. So we really don't need to go any farther into that. So let's go back to some of this Tariq Nasheed tea. All right. And this one was very interesting to me. It says they are paying people $1,500 to take the new COVID vaccine. This sounds completely trustworthy. Sign me up. A $1,500 payment proposed for people to get COVID-19. Now, before you call this pseudoscience, because Tariq Nasheed posted it, I'm going to show you where the article is, and it's at alalabama.com. It says a congressman wants to pay people who get the COVID-19 vaccine. All right, that's pretty weird, right? Well, here's a corresponding article. It says $1,500 payment proposed for people who get COVID-19 vaccine. A former presidential candidate is proposing a measure that will pay people $1,500 in exchange for getting the COVID-19 vaccine. U.S. Representative John Delaney told CNBC the payments would be an incentive for those who might be reluctant to take the vaccine. All right. Now, I find it interesting that they're going to give people $1,500 and they haven't even got a stimulus package put together for the entire nation. All right. Now, here it says the faster we get 75% of this country vaccinated, the faster we end COVID and the sooner everything returns to normal, said Delaney, who ran for president in 2020. We have to create, in my judgment, an incentive for people to really accelerate their thinking about taking the vaccine. All right. Now, here it says Delaney said the payments wouldn't mean the vaccine would be required for everyone. If you're still afraid of the vaccine and don't want to take it, that's your right, Delaney said. You won't participate in this program, but guess what? You're going to benefit anyhow because we'll get the country to herd immunity faster, which benefits you. So I think everyone wins. Delaney's proposal would cost about $380 billion, roughly $110 billion more than the total of the stimulus payments that went out in March during the early days of the coronavirus pandemic. The stimulus provided up to $2,400 for married couples and up to $1,200 for single people, with an additional $500 per dependent. And I wouldn't be surprised. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if going forward, in order to get stimuluses, they made it mandatory for you to show that you've received a vaccination. Okay? Despite months of negotiation, Congress has failed to agree on terms for a second COVID-19 stimulus. The latest measure, introduced earlier this week, would include billions for small businesses, states, and local governments, and unemployment, but not another round of direct payments. Vaccine shipments from makers Pfizer and Moderna expected to begin in the coming weeks after applications to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for emergency use authorization. The FDA is currently reviewing clinical trial data to test the vaccines and effectiveness. Right. So this guy down in Alabama is suggesting a $1,500 payout to everyone who takes the vaccine. All right. Now, this is a state thing, right? See, this is a state. This is going on in Alabama, kind of like how this went on in North Carolina. Right. See that? So let's go back to Tariq. All right. Now he's talking about how for the next 4 years, the Democrats are going to flood us. And we already talked about this, especially if you go to Blacklight Revelations 1 and 2. It says the Democrats are going to flood us with hand-picked black employees who are either non-foundational black Americans, married to non-foundational black Americans, or sexual intersectionalists who they'll prop them up in the media to promote policies for everyone except foundational black Americans. Just like this guy here with the microphone in his hand. Now, if you look at this, none of this stuff is for black people. Qualify affordable health care and lower drug prices, smaller business relief, more jobs, higher wages, student loan programs, and hate crime legislation to combat discrimination against immigrant communities. We actually had this happen to us. None of that has happened to immigrants, but they actually feel the need to do something to protect immigrants. What a slap in the face, right? That's why you got to watch my man TD Hip Hop video. He has that part with Dave Chappelle and Charlie Murphy where it said, "What did the five fingers say to the face?" That's what they should say. What did the 5 Democrats say to the black? Smack. Right. So let's continue. Looks like the Black Authority got his Twitter account blocked. All right. It says, under crime bill Biden's watch, this is about to become very common. This just happened to add Professor Black Truth. The Democrats are using their influence to try to silence their critics. And of course, this site is cooperating with them. This post does not violate terms of service, but it does violate terms of servitude. Ooh. Now, this is interesting, right? He's talking about the word Hispanic is trending because white Hispanics are again showing their culture of anti-black racism. And there's a perfect example to follow this up of on Blacklight Revelations when Eva Longoria basically got on an interview at CNBC and said that, Hispanic people are the only reason that Joe Biden got into the White House and that, they were the real heroes in the election. Despite the fact that they make up 13% of the population and voted a significantly lower percentage for Joe Biden than we did. Pseudoscience, right? But we're the ones with the Kangz Psudoscience. So here he's questioning the validity of the polls. And again, the polls were what this article was about. But where are these polls? That's the question. Where are they? Okay. Now it says, you want to know how people really feel about the vaccines? Look at the poll below. And here's Tariq's poll. Now you see 89.8% of these people said that they have no interest in the vaccine. Now it says, has all of this massive pandering by the media and government directed at black people today convinced you that you want to take the new COVID vaccine? Right? And there has been mass pandering by the media and the government, just like they did here with the Tuskegee study, right? Now, again, just like when Kamala Harris won, and they love the symbolism so much, we have a group of idiots in front of a hospital in Boston dancing, you know what I'm saying? Dancing for the COVID vaccine, okay? It says medics are dancing in front of the hospital in Boston in an attempt to appeal to black people to voluntarily take the new COVID vaccine. Powers that be are going out of their way to get black people to take this vaccine. They must really care about our health, huh? And then they'll turn around and say that we did this for black people to try to help keep them healthy during COVID-19. We already know how it works. We literally are their talking points. This is why when I say we need to remove ourselves from the political system, we need to get out of the reach of the Democrats so that stuff like this cannot be readily apparent for the world to see. You know what I'm saying? This is inappropriate behavior right here, and it's not helping anything or anybody. Now, here, Tariq Nasheed is talking about the Tuskegee study. White officials propped up black people to say the Tuskegee study was safe too. And I say the Tuskegee study because that's actually what it was called. It was not called the Tuskegee experiment. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get in trouble for misinformation, despite the fact that clearly I've shown pure examples of flat out lying and pseudoscience. But if I do it, my posts will be removed. I literally quoted what the prime minister in Brazil said on a typed part of a photo that had music behind it that I posted on TikTok and then posted to YouTube, and that video was struck down and it said that it contained COVID-19 misinformation, despite the fact that I found 20 articles that quoted the same thing, and I sent them highlighted to YouTube and they've been sitting on it. Okay. So here this Katie Tur person says the Pettigrews, who took part in the Pfizer trials, saw the impact of the Tuskegee experiment, which it's called the Tuskegee study, firsthand. Now they're working to convince people the vaccine is safe. It's like that woman did in the Tuskegee study. We have to acknowledge that the fear is real, but we also have to acknowledge that we have come a long way. Actually, we haven't come anywhere at all. We haven't gotten any economic restitution. And when it comes to this, the only thing that we got was a half-ass apology by Bill Clinton and also a backlash from him against Stokely Carmichael. We didn't get anything, nothing. And the Tuskegee study, again, isn't the only time that the United States did this. All right. Again, I'm going to bring you back to North Carolina. This is done all of the time. And not to mention, we just don't even talk about the Planned Parenthoods and all of the abortions and prophylactics that they put in place that they use to sterilize women as well. Okay. All right. This is what I call political blackface. Now, here in Massachusetts, all right, looks like a bunch of COVID-19 positive prisoners are going to be getting vaccinated, or possible, COVID victims are going to get vaccinated who are prisoners. We got yet another black person getting the COVID-19 vaccine on camera. All right. So here it says in Louisiana, they are using yet another black, non-foundational black doctor to do the COVID-19 experiment today. Notice no one has given a scientific reason as to why we are only seeing black people injected with this new vaccine. Facts. That's not pseudoscience. Now, this is another thing right here. And I want to make sure that everybody understands. This is what I call diversionary social justice. And I'm going to expand on this topic at a later date. Diversionary social justice. Diversionary social justice is a tactic that's used by Democrats and other political organizations to pander to protected groups and minorities to make them feel that they're getting some kind of action taken against oppressive elements, when the action that's being taken has a zero net effect on the wealth or well-being of the person that this is being advocated to, while also causing more backlash from the people who already have an issue with those protected class people, to continuously create a cycle of divide and conflict and never come to a complete resolution. Barack Obama himself was a diversionary social justice tactic. He was a living, walking, breathing diversionary social justice tactic. Black Lives Matters are a diversionary social justice tactic. Okay. That's a diversionary social justice tactic. Okay. When you hear about climate justice, voter suppression, police reform, all of that nonsense, it's inaccurate, diversionary social justice tactics, because they're a diversion from the actual problem. They fix a flat by appealing to someone's emotions while doing literally nothing to uplift or uproot them from this biased world and system that suppresses them from birth. Okay. Now, that's what that is. Okay. So it's just very interesting, man. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you can like Tariq. You don't have to like Tariq, but his political tweets have been on point. And I believe that his assessment of the events surrounding and going on currently involving COVID-19 are on point. And I'd like someone to prove me wrong. I'd like someone to show me how the Tuskegee study is pseudoscience. The only way that it's pseudoscience is because you don't experiment on humans unless they're aware of it and sign a consent. And the Tuskegee study did nothing to help African Americans. It didn't even help the victims when it found out that this was a fraud. Same with North Carolina. They sterilized women unknowingly for a period of 10 years and had the nerve to only pay back a few of the people who were sterilized. And then you have people who turn their faces up and say that we have no reason to have any issues with anything in the country. Liberals tell you to shut up and put on a mask and take the vaccination. And honestly, I'm just tired of everyone telling us what to do. I'm tired of people being grouped in. Black people from 1958 to 1968 dealt with this sterilization and with this genocide, and it was done purposely to keep the numbers of black people down in the population so that black people can never have a political voice, so that we can never advance in this country that's supposedly a land of opportunity for all people. You know what I'm saying? It's supposed to be a land of opportunity for all people, but people didn't even have the opportunity to get restitution from when they had their guts chemically torn out and were never able to have kids. Where's the justice in that? Where's the liberty in that? Where's the pursuit of happiness in that? You have to stop with the lies. You don't want statues torn down. Stop tearing the pages out of our history book. And it's not very difficult. It's not, anything unreasonable. It's not a radical idea. It's not counterterrorism. You know what I'm saying? It's literally just asking for respect. That's it. Stop saying that Abraham Lincoln was a hero. You know what I'm saying? The man said that blacks were subhuman, and he said that the only reason that he released the slaves in the South, because if you know anything about the Civil War, there was still slavery after the Civil War. Okay? The Civil War wasn't fought for slavery. Okay? In the North, slaves were still allowed in states that allowed slaves. The South had a majority of legal slavery. There were a few states in the North that allowed slaves, and the legislation that was created as a result of the Civil War did not touch the states in the North. And it didn't touch the states in the North because the states in the North were part of the United States. You have to remember that, as you know, the Confederacy was no longer a part of the United States. This is what's so funny to me. A lot of people who try to identify with the Confederate heritage, if you actually lived in the South, I get it. It is what it is. It is a part of ingrained heritage in the South. But a lot of the people that I see in the North, if you lived in the North and your family is from the North, how do you identify with the Confederacy? That's literally like living in Spain and saying that you identify with, Germany and the German flag, and, you want to preserve your German heritage. The Confederate States of the United of America was a completely different country. The Union. This is why the predecessor down the line is called the United States of America. It's not called the United Confederacy of America. You know what I'm saying? So, people have their feelings about the Confederate flag or the rebel flag or whatever, and it is what it is. I really don't care. People have their right to expression. But you have these false narratives of, people crying about a flag and, this, that, and the other. And really, the thing is that when people want to ask questions, I'll ask somebody from up here in Ohio. We're so far north that we border Canada. There's no more United States north of us. You know what I mean? And there's people here. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, is not very far from us. You know what I'm saying? And it was a significant place in the Civil War. I get it, but there's a lot of people there who do Civil War reenactment, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But my question is, how do you identify with something that you were never a part of? You know what I mean? What aspect of it that you identify with is it? That you can relate to. Because if you're from Ohio, if you're from Pennsylvania, if you're from New York, you were never part of that culture. The Confederacy has a strict culture. Okay. Those people, they're eating food that we consider soul food. They call it home cooking. You know what I mean? They eat, turnip greens, you know what I'm saying? Sweet potato pies and different things like that. Stuff that you would consider soul food, you know, is called home cooking, and everybody eats it in the South. That's not specific to black people. You know what I'm saying? That's some pseudoscience for people to believe that. You know what I'm saying? Those recipes were learned by slaves because they used to have to cook those foods for their masters. You know what I'm saying? That those aren't specific, those aren't culturally black foods. You know what I'm saying? You know, white people get really offended when black people talk about cultural appropriation. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, there's been a fair share of forced appropriation, you know, that black people have dealt with as a result of, you know, the American experience. So, you know, and there's nothing, I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? It's just history. It's so ingrained into history. You know what I'm saying? That like people think that these are the original recipes. But like how do you identify with that if you're not from there? You know what I'm saying? How do you identify with? Like I did a video a while ago, and the video was about how black people were outlawed in Oregon. You know what I'm saying? It used to be called Oregon Country. You know what I'm saying? They were outlawed out there. You had a choice. I think they gave you 6 months to get out of there, or else you would be publicly spanked, and then you had another 6 months. This was in the north. Again, Oregon, you know, out west is similar to Ohio. I mean, it borders Canada. It's very far north. Cold weather. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it just when you ask these kind of questions, you know, the same people who get upset about censorship, you know, they'll censor you because then they'll just start saying, "What are you crying about racism?" You know, you were never a slave. You know, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. We've all heard it before. You know what I'm saying? The same shit that they always say. So, I mean, but like, you know, what if you just want to ask a question? Like, my question is, well, if you're from Montana or if you're from Minnesota, how do you identify with the Confederacy? I'm not saying you shouldn't. You know, I watched Dukes of Hazzard. You know what I'm saying? I think everybody did. I've eaten Kentucky Fried Chicken before. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of motherfuckers voted for KKK Joe Biden. You know what I'm saying? So my question is how do you identify with something that's foreign to you? Because regardless of how people want to, you know, look at it, the facts of the matter is that if your entire family starts in the North, then the Confederacy is indeed foreign to you. It's just as foreign to you, you know what I'm saying, as Germany or as Canada, because the Confederacy was not the United States. The Union was. You know what I'm saying? The Confederacy seceded. That means that it withdrew from the United States. So the United States cannot withdraw from itself. Okay? A small pocket of people who did not align politically and ideologically withdrew themselves from the United States to form a country that was more consistent with their worldview. Which again, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, they file articles of confederation or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But again, my question is for those people. I'd like to know the root justification. See, and a lot of times, you know, we know what the root justification is, but sometimes it's not. You know, sometimes it's not. Sometimes people really, you know, they do agree, identify with certain things. You know, certain things interest them or whatever, and that's fine. But if we were truly where we needed to be as a country, we'd be perfectly comfortable with, you know, having those kind of conversations. You know what I'm saying? We wouldn't be on completely different pages. See? So, I don't know. I think the United States is having some serious growing pains. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it'll get better, maybe it won't. Maybe it'll get worse before it gets better. No, right? We don't know. All right. So, again, I agree with a lot of those tweets that I just went over. And I'm sure that reluctantly, a lot of people that come in and watch this video, you won't have a choice but to agree either. You know? So, with that being said, I think that we have covered the spread. All right. So my question is, do you agree with these tweets? Because I pointed a lot of this out before on another platform. And oh my God, people were upset. Oh, I don't understand what people were so upset about. You know, I showed citation. I gave dates, article titles, events, places, legislation. And I was told that I was blackwashing history. How was I blackwashing history? Unless blackwashing history means accurately talking about the disgusting shit that happened to black people here in the United States, then I don't understand how I could blackwash history. I didn't say that there was any important people that were black who weren't. You know, I didn't do that. So how did I blackwash history? I've been called a racist for talking about this. How was I racist? I've never gathered a group of people of another, race and told them I'm giving them treatment for a health condition and then ignored them until that health condition either permanently damaged their health or killed them. I've never done that. I'm a licensed healthcare professional. I'd have lost my license if I had done that. So how is talking about history racist? You know, I read a essay from someone who was a daughter of the Confederates today, and she was extremely upset about the argument for reparations. And one of the things that she kept repeating like a parrot was, well, if the United States is liable for reparations because of the slave trade and different things like that happened, so is Africa. I'm going to correct the parrot, okay? Now, when it comes to the reparations argument, Africa is being sought after. Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Ghana, all of those countries who were complicit, they are being sought after. So when you hear people make rebuttals based in pseudoscience, then you already know that they're not really entertaining what you're trying to say anyway. You know, she clearly is just offended by the idea of reparations. She didn't do any research into it. She just doesn't want you to get shit so that she can always be ahead of you. You know what I'm saying? Not for justice. Not like the Constitution says, justice for all. Because she clearly doesn't give a fuck about justice because she didn't do adequate research. Clearly if people are looking to go after those countries in Africa, then they are looking for justice. I don't think anybody has an issue with, saying that what people in Africa did and their involvement in the slave trade was wrong. I could name about 6 or 7 people, who are household names who have criticized countries in Africa. But one of the things is that you have to listen to the unspoken racism. I mean, this woman was such an idiot. She said that you have to go after Africa for reparations. How do you go after a continent for reparations? What is a governing what governing body of a continent would you go after for reparations? So this idiot, like most people, one of them being President Bush, doesn't even acknowledge that the African continent is broken down into countries, which is even more ironic because it was broken down into countries by the same people who started the United States. You know what I'm saying? So how do you not know that? But you know so much about the Confederacy, which wasn't even a part of the United States. But if you ask that kind of question, then all you get is you're angry. I'm not angry. I'm just asking questions. That's how you facilitate understanding and mutual understanding, mutual respect. But see, that's the problem though, is that there's no respect. And there's people that just don't want mutual understanding. And the reason why they don't want mutual understanding is because they feel threatened. But there shouldn't be any threats. Those people shouldn't feel threatened because, there's the things that, talk about how genetically inferior we are, like the bell curve and like IQ in Today's Society is another book. You know, one of the Jordan Peterson, Jared Taylor talking points books. You know what I'm saying? So it's very interesting the way that these kind of arguments break down. Okay. And then another one that they like to say is well, I'm not just gonna pay black people. Okay, well, I don't think anybody asked anybody to just pay black people. Why would you just pay black people? You know what I mean? That doesn't even make sense. If somebody wasn't a part of the country during the time when that happened, why would they be included in any kind of payment? So like a lot of these questions that people have are self-solving questions, but the thing is that they're quick rebuttals in an attempt to shut people up, because what it is that the history is triggering and they don't want to go over the history, which again, you know, it's history, you know, it's history. It's amazing when we talk about World War II, you know, and we talk about Nazis, you know, nobody ever says to shut up about Nazis. Even Germans. I mean, Angela Merkel, you know. I just read something about, that she read. I think it actually came from that last video that I did, about how the United States uh, voted against anti-Nazi resolutions for the UN. You know, even Angela Merkel, she says, you know, Germany owes the world a debt as a result of World War II. I mean, I don't think I don't feel like any German today, you know, was responsible for World War II, but the German government is. And unfortunately, the way that the world works is that the government is always funded by people's taxes. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same government that we had back then. So how does that work? You know? But you can never even get to those points. And the thing is there's many reasons why we'll never get to those points. One is because nobody wants to hear it. If it doesn't affect you, then you know people don't care. They don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Another reason is because the spineless leadership, you know, in the black community, they like to chase after diversionary social justice, because diversionary social justice is visible, okay, and it can easily be celebrated. And when something is celebrated, people usually attach their emotions to the celebration. And emotions are so strong when they're attached to the celebration, they make the actual value that we're not getting, the actual value that we're being cheated out of, temporarily disappear, you know, for that satisfaction of those receptors being filled with false hope and joy. You know what I'm saying? Diversionary social justice. Police reform is diversionary social justice. People say, somebody actually called me on my YouTube channel the Black Rush Limbaugh. Now, I don't understand how somebody could call me the Black Rush Limbaugh, because, you know, I don't hate black people. I love my culture. But when, you know, things are not done properly, then I say something about it. I find it interesting that that dude would call me the Black Rush Limbaugh as a result of my criticisms of a white guy, you know? But this is just how upside down the world is, you know. Like they said on the Matrix, I think it was Morpheus. Everybody likes to quote the Matrix because we got this whole red pill movement. You know, you got the red pill. You take the red pill, and oh, you're detached and you've woken up. But don't forget that there's people outside of the Matrix. You know what I'm saying? There's people outside of the Matrix who were never connected to it. See? So if you look at the financial system and if you look at the benefits of the United States, all the inherent benefits that come with the United States, if you look at that system and you call that system the matrix, and you call yourself disconnecting from it because you took a red pill, well, guess what? There's a whole bunch of people that lived here that never benefited from the system of the matrix. See, We've always been outside of it. Don't forget about, the guy in Matrix, Dozer, the one that killed Cypher. Don't forget about him. There's people outside of the Matrix that don't have the little socket on the back of their neck. It means that they were never plugged in. You got to be careful about those people who still have that socket, you see. See, Neo was cool, but he could get plugged back in. You know what I'm saying? He can get plugged back in. Now, when they were doing the training in the simulation, Morpheus told Neo, anyone who's still connected to the Matrix is a potential threat. They should be treated like that. I gotta say that I agree with him. So, that being said, that wraps up this video. All right. So make sure that you share this video out. Okay. Make sure that you smash those like buttons. All right. Share this to all your groups. Hit up the about page. I'll be dropping some more content on the other sites pretty soon. Okay. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.